the last witnesses of the old America. In the annals of American history, there exists a fragile thread connecting us to a world that, for all practical purposes, no longer exists. It is the memory of those who lived before the upheavals of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, ordinary citizens who witnessed extraordinary changes and recorded them, if only for the attentive ears of government journalists dispatched door to door. Between 1936 and 1940, under the Federal Writers Project of Roosevelt's New Deal, thousands of Americans spoke their memories into transcripts. No audio recording survived. Only the careful, sometimes meticulous documentation of their voices persisted, in stacks of handwritten and typewritten pages preserved in the Library of Congress. Nearly 2,900 individual biographies were captured, spanning 24 states. For decades, they lay untouched, a silent chorus of a past world. I stumbled upon them not while searching for oral histories, but while researching architectural archives from the 1870s. I sought answers to a simple question. Why do so many American public buildings and clock towers from that era possess proportions alien to the people they were meant to serve? The further I delved, the more I realized that the answer lay not in brick and mortar, but in the people themselves. These interviews preserved what textbooks could not first-hand accounts of Americans who lived before the old world dissolved into the new. Consider what it meant to be before everything changed. A person born in 1855 and living to 85 would have died in 1940. They would have been alive to meet the journalists knocking at their door, a child during the 1860s and 1870s, and a witness to some of the most dramatic transformations in American society, all within one lifetime. Their grandchildren, born in the 1920s and 1930s, heard these stories directly, bridging two worlds, one of a past almost mythic in its scale, and another, familiar yet incongruous, of modern post-war America. Mary Kelly, born in 1,851 inches, Southfield, Michigan, lived to 113, spanning from pre-Civil War America to the age when televisions flickered in every home. Maggie Barnes, the daughter of a former enslaved woman, born in the early 1880s, lived into the late 20th century. These were not anomalies. Researchers confirmed dozens of supercentenarians, dozens more lived to 90 or beyond. Yet the events they described demand attention. The night of the 8th of October 1871 was remembered not only for the Great Chicago Fire, but also for simultaneous infernos across 3 states. In Peshtigo, Wisconsin, an entire town vanished in an hour, claiming up to 2,500 lives. Witnesses recalled winds lifting adults into the air, flames racing faster than a person could flee, and heat so intense that travelers crossing open land ignited spontaneously. Reverend Peter Pernin, who survived by plunging into the Peshtigo River, described a fire that consumed oxygen itself, leaving some scorched and others unburned yet lifeless. The fires of Holland and Manistee in Michigan, along with threats to Port Huron, created a conflagration over 225 million acres, verified by the National Weather Service. While the official story blamed drought, debris, and wind, researchers as early as 1,883 speculated about comet fragments igniting these disasters from above, a theory revisited decades later by scientific institutions. Simultaneously, orphan trains carried roughly 250,000 children from urban centers like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia into rural communities of the Midwest and West. Exhibited almost like commodities at stops along the route, many were selected to labor on farms. Most were not true orphans, but children of impoverished or immigrant families, their histories rewritten or obliterated. Names changed, origins obscured, memories of place and identity severed. The architectural narrative mirrored these human losses. The grand neoclassical constructions of the 1,893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, massive buildings with domes rivaling European cathedrals, built in less than 2 years with only manual labor, stood briefly before being demolished. The pattern repeated. Paris, 1,889. Buffalo, 1,000. 901. Street, Louis, 1904. San Francisco, 1915. Monumental edifices arose and vanished. The elderly Americans of the 1930s recalled these buildings with a sense of awe and dislocation, witnessing glimpses of a grandeur that textbooks ignored. The chain of memory is broken. The last Americans who saw the old world with their own eyes have passed. Their grandchildren, too, have aged. Yet, in the Library of Congress, the transcripts survive careful, enduring witnesses to a vanished America. Buildings, remember, even when people forget. These documents preserve truths erased from memory, waiting, nearly a century later, for someone willing to read them fully, unfiltered, and to see the old world as it was truly lived.